welcome to Northwest Connection podcast. And tonight we're diving into the outskirts of Manchester, a city with a music scene that's nothing short of legendary. But this band isn't here to ride on the coattails of history, they're carving out their own style. Welcome, Handsome Rat.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, it's Patrick, isn't it?
It is indeed. A pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite. And listen, we'll ride on anyone's coattails.
You'll take the glory of anyone. So, can you give us a bit of background to Handsome Rat? How did it come together?
Yeah, well, at the core of the band, really, it's myself and my songwriting partner, Lee. And we go back a long way, really. We've got like a 25-year history in various different bands, but the sort of tag of Handsome Rat and that whole era, I suppose, started around the lockdown period.
Right.
And basically, we got together and we said, look, we've probably written in excess of like 300 songs.
Wow.
And we're not really doing anything with them. So we just got together and said, let's try and explore what's out there now, because it'd been a long time since we'd even put anything out. And basically what we did was, we started looking into the depths of the internet, etc. And how it actually came about was, we had the song that's called Great Expectations.
Yeah, love that song.
Thanks very much, yeah. It was literally just a 30-second demo of a song that we never finished. And the song's like 20 years old. So just to work out how things like SoundCloud worked, etc., we just posted it up. And basically, the first person that got on it was the Unheard Indie podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think I'd made a comment on something on one of the podcasts just as a viewer. And he got back straight away just saying, I love this tune, I'm going to put it on. And so it was never even meant to be a tune. We just stuck it on with this working title with Handsome Rat just as a sort of off-the-cuff name. And from there, it just sort of grew arms and legs, really. Got a lot of momentum. And then we just started recording some of the other tunes that we'd previously wrote. But then we'd also, pleasingly started writing some new songs as well. So like In and Out of Love, the song that we released last year, that was like a brand new song, where some of them are like I say, 20 years old, some of them, and it's like
you've got a massive back catalogue of music
coming out of the amber like Jurassic Park, reanimating them, bringing them back to life. So it's been really good, and that's pretty much how it started and how we've been on the trajectory we have done for the last 4 or 5 years.
So where did the name Handsome Rat come from?
Can't explain it. Well, I don't know that many rats, and I ain't that handsome, so I can't explain it really. It's just something that came from the subconscious, and I went with it.
Yeah, sometimes you can think on it too much, can't you?
Definitely.
So we have a lot of bands that sort of start around lockdown. It seems that like people have more time, I suppose, to have that get the creative side out of it. Yeah. So that's it's been a massive. I think that's why the scene's grown so massive because of lockdown. People think,
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that myself. A lot of people starting in lockdown, and people of all ages, going for it or finding that artistic side of them or whatever it is that they needed to do to get through it. I don't think it was particularly because of lockdown we did what we did. It just coincided with that time. We were just talking about doing something. Like I say, we did our first gig like when we were 19 in like the year 2000. So we're going back quite a way. When you're a lifer, you've got no choice. There's no other way. You've just got to continue. In that time, I've seen hundreds of bands come and go. Some people do it for a while. Some people do it. Some of our good friends do it for just as long, if not longer. There was guys when we started who were in the 40s who were still knocking around in the 60s doing it now. So, like I say, when you're a lifer, you've got no choice really. But it wasn't particularly because of lockdown. It was just because we were talking around lockdown. And I suppose not the difference, but I suppose particular to our story was when we say to people, we were in various bands and we were grafting away for 20 years. Well, we weren't grafting away really. There was like years where we would do nothing. We wouldn't really gig. Years could go by and we wouldn't really gig. But we always wrote and recorded. So that's what sort of kept our interest going. And like I say, when Handsome Rat was born, if you want to say that term, we just had a load of songs ready to go. But we're still not really prolific even in the gigging. Since in 18 months we've done 9 gigs.
Right.
And that's all we've done. So because gigging, as you know, is like a double-edged sword. You want to get sharp and tight and get those experience points and go out there and make those mistakes. But at the same time, you're relying on the people your friends, your family, other bands that know you to come along and support. And there's only so many times you can ask.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a waste of time for you. It's a waste of time for for promoters if you're with a promoter. So So
as the music progressed? Has it not progressed? No, it's not quite the right word. But has it changed much over the years, or has it always been like
No,
had a
I
similar
think
style?
I think it's always been a similar style. I think
because I would say it was like it's quite up to date and it's modern. It doesn't sound like the songs were.
Yeah, well, I think
penned.
because they've been recorded in a modern style, really. Maybe through our producer who plays bass with us as well, Kian. Maybe there's sort of a modern take on some of the stuff we hear, but when we play the songs, just on an acoustic, they're sort of a classic sound to us. So maybe some of the stuff around it makes the atmospherics, the synths that are put in there is something that Lee and I probably wouldn't have naturally done ourselves. Maybe that's the influence of the people we collaborate with.
Right. So talking about your collaboration, do you have a different way of? You have two main members in the band, but you have a fluid change, don't you, on your live?
Yeah, that's right. At the heart of it, really, we are a duo, but we get a lot of help from our producer Kian as well, who plays, as I said, plays bass with us quite a bit, and he's quite influential for us as well. So at a push, I suppose we're a trio, but at the heart of it, yeah, definitely we're a duo, and we just have been very fortunate over the years to acquire a large roster of friends that have been into the songs that we've wrote. And always seem quite happy to come along and play a gig for us. So, in that respect, there's quite a bit of strength in that, because when you get a gig offer, you don't really have to turn it down. You don't really have to look too much at the diary, as long as even Lee himself, as the other half of the duo, has not always been available. The only indispensable member is me. As long as I'm there, it can be done. And it makes it easier, and hence why I'm here on my own tonight. No one really wants to hear from those other guys, not least me. As long as I'm
You're
here,
the one that counts.
The show can roll on. No, but through illness or whatever, he's not always been available. But yeah, the strength is that there's a lot of people to call on that we can keep that that show rolling.
Yeah, nice. So what's your musical background? How did you get into creating music?
Well, I'm not trained in anything. I don't play an instrument. I'm very much just from the inside with melodies and lyrics. My musical background, really, just like a lot of people, was music was just always around me. In a house with a lot of brothers and sisters who were older than me. That gave me a lot of exposure to. I won't go as far as to say an eclectic mix, but certainly, around the time of Manchester, my older siblings would have been listening to that, but I'd have been in primary school. So I had a lot of exposure to that. Then obviously dance, heavier rock, and hip hop. So I think because of my exposure, it sort of awakened something in me, really.
Yeah.
And that's what got me
going
into
seeds.
it. Yeah. And I never had a desire to play an instrument or anything. I always saw myself as sort of a melody maker and a lyricist, and I found that came easy to me, really. Maybe it's a patience thing. I just didn't have the patience to sit down. But sometimes it was just like when I said before, you're a lifer, you've got no choice. In a similar vein, it was just like without being too cheesy, it's sort of like a calling, really. It was just something that vocationally came to me.
And your music is that? Do you take inspiration from current music at the moment, or?
I wouldn't say it's harder to keep your finger on the pulse as time goes on. I think these days there's just so much of it. When we were starting, 20 years ago, Lee and I, everything was concentrated, wasn't it? It was like there was only so many media outlets.
Yeah.
If someone broke big, it's because those few media outlets were behind them. So invariably, people got on even stuff that you would say, "Oh, I'm into something alternative." It was probably getting hammered on like MTV Europe or whatever you were exposed to, or the evening session, with Steve Lamacq.
I've never thought of it that way before. It was actually only a concentrated amount of outlets, wasn't it? But now,
and I know I'm not won't claim to say anything radical here. I think a lot of people would hit on this. Is that I think with people coming through now, just maybe society in general, is that attention spans are so much harder, aren't they?
Definitely. Yeah.
Not a lot of people I speak to will listen to a full album. They'll listen to a single or even just a part of a single, or a single release.
Yeah, a lot of bands just release an EP now, don't they?
when I say, to take you back to the answer to the question, there's a lot of modern things that I'll listen to what's on and what comes across, but I won't set in my ways, but there's not something that's jumped out at me. I think, oh my God, yeah, I really want to emulate that or take some influence from that. I kind of just go with what's already in me, and I think that's what we do when we're writing, really.
And with your music, does the music come first, or is it the lyrics that come first?
A bit of a mix, really. Yeah, a bit of a mix. When we have wrote new tunes, when I say we've wrote like 300 songs, they're not always complete. There's so many demos and stuff over the years, starting from when we went back to a Fostex 4-track tape recorder, right up through.
I remember them. I don't know if all our audience will remember those.
Right up through the digital era. Now we've got so many like demos and whatnot. So occasionally it's just about going into the archives and seeing what's in there. And like I say, that's been the beauty of the sort of Handsome Rat project, is that we'll pull out something that can be up to 20 years old, 10 years old, 5 years old, but then equally we can just write something on the hoof, really, which like In and Out of Love was done like that. Or the most recent release we had, The Tomb of Pope Julius II, that was like that. They're all brand new tunes, so that's heartening to know that the fire is still there, really.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you feel you aim for a particular genre when you write, or do you just write whatever's natural?
No, I suppose like a lot of musicians, you fall into a style probably that's the product of your influences. I never set out to say this one's going to be a punky tune, this one's going to be a bit more introspective or introverted or slow. I just it's just very much on feel of it, really.
And where do you find your inspiration for your lyrics?
There's not a lot of it in there that would say like heavily biographical. Maybe just the occasional line or something. It's for observations. It's things that I see around me or I've read, and I'll just riff on that if you like, and build on it. Some of it, I say, it can be sort of biographical or autobiographical, should I say, but not too heavily, really. Sometimes it's just a phrase. Sometimes, like a lot of bands, it's just a phrase that's sort of you use as a guide in the melody, and you'll build something on. But some of them can be quite multi-layered, like the Tomb of Pope Julius II. I wrote that about basically in a multi-layered meaning, really, and that it was the struggle to make art, and on the surface, it's obviously around Michelangelo's making the tomb of Pope Julius II, as the sculptor, and it was the piece of work that he had to downsize constantly, through the constraints of the time on his project. But at the same time, I see parallels in what me and Lee have been through, like over 20 years, how we've had to scale down some of our ideas. That's why the lyrics are, can include things like scale it back and art to love and touch, but it's hurting so much. So you can write in a multi-layered way as well. Obviously, a lot of people do that, and it's not something that I set out to do, but as you go along, the lyrics start to find their own meaning and make some sense, and you think, something drives you to write a line that's not necessarily the first idea, but maybe it's you're building on something. So all different ways, really.
And say the tunes that you've got, are they finished before you record them, or are you still tweaking as you're in the studio recording?
It's the main body of them can be sort of done well in advance, but I would say that's definitely the case where you're tweaking things right up to the last. I mean, I can tweak lyrics right up to the end, or sometimes even mix it up live a little bit. And it would,
because some bands have them finished, don't they? And they won't change them. They're so rigid, and then
well, you can't. Again, it's a double-edged sword, I suppose. In the creative process, is that you can drive yourself insane by never finishing. And that can be a blight on you. But you can also use that flexibility to tweak things for the better.
Yeah. So you've been together at this sort of current lineup for like 18 months. You've played a few gigs over the time, but is it around Manchester that you mostly play?
Yeah, well, we've only played, I'd say, I think the first gig we've played as Handsome Rat was in May 23. We've only played 9 gigs, like I say, for that reason where, you're trying not to thrash it too much.
Yeah.
For the right reasons.
Overdo it.
So, but mainly in Manchester. what else we played? Around the outskirts of Manchester, played some great venues like the Snug, obviously.
Oh yeah,
in
it's a great
Abington.
venue. Yeah,
Not
love that
too
venue.
far, is it? It's what they do there is incredible, really, for putting on for new acts. So we were quite fortunate with that one because we supported the band Shackites, who sadly no longer going at the moment. But I think it was like the Shackites HQ basically. So we were really fortunate that night. There was a sort of packed out house. Yeah, but then we played like just the usual sort of venues around town. Really, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. The usual venues, but on the circuit, Lions Den, etc.
Yeah.
Just before Christmas, we did get out to Yorkshire. Played Yorkshire twice actually, but we got out to Yorkshire to play the Blind Pig in Sowerby Bridge.
Right.
It was a cracking venue. I think they mainly put on, from what I can see,
not a venue I'm familiar with, to be honest.
Yeah, they mainly put on like cover bands, and we supported an Oasis cover band.
Right.
So it was a cracking night, really. It was packed out, and it was really good. And we played like Merseyside as well. We played Zanzibar and Liverpool, and Future Yard and Birkenhead, which again another cracking sort of
not a venue I need to get to this year. Definitely.
I've
been over there.
And I'd say the Snug and the Future Yard in particular, just everything about them, the communication, the way they go out of the way to make you feel welcome. Just two venues that are doing it the right way, and really good experiences.
What's been your best favourite gig so far?
Favourite gig so far? It probably was the Snug, to be fair, just because we were quite fortunate that we landed on supporting Shackites, and it's just a real magical night. We had a good gig recently supporting our long-time friends Ventrells at the Deaf Institute. That was brilliant.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite venues. Yeah,
it was the lodge at the Deaf Institute, so the smaller room, but it was cracking. We've got a long history with Ventrells and Phil from Ventrells. We sort of go back with them like 25 years, basically.
Right. I think they've just released some new music.
Yeah, they had a single out. Well, they've had a few singles out. It's probably one of been Phil's most prolific periods, really. And I think they have got an album, I think, on the verge of coming out, which is going to be absolutely fantastic, because I say Phil, in a funny way, Phil was my first internet friend. That's not as dodgy as it sounds. The first internet friend I'll admit to anyway, on camera. But but back when we were sort of 19, 20 and the internet was getting going, he was the sort of first person I sort of reached out to in music. I wasn't in a band with. I used to go and watch his old band all the time down in London, and we had some absolutely cracking nights together. But he's an amazing talent, Phil, and he's what I'd describe as a bit of an enigma. He's not been there prolifically, but he's been there consistently.
Yeah.
But I think if you listen to all Phil's tunes, you want to get him on, really, the Ventrells, should I say. But they've got so many good tunes that I think Phil's wrote, like, in my mind, like 3 or 4 classic albums.
Right.
He's so good, some of the tunes. And so that was a cracking night. We played with them at the Deaf Institute as well recently. It was special because obviously we had a good personal relationship with them as well.
Yeah, that always helps, doesn't it? Getting on with the band rather than being in a green room with someone you don't know.
Yeah, you can, because there is that experience where you do meet. I mean, it's like life and anything in life, and you meet some bands who are just hard to get along with, and I don't know why anyone would has got that attitude, but different things. You come across some young bands that are, and I say that not in a patronising way, but I suppose when you're younger, it's easier to make some interpersonal mistakes in it than it is when you've got a few miles on the clock.
So you've been on the circuit for a while. Do you find it easier or harder now with the internet, with social media to promote gigs, or?
Yeah, like I said before, it's. If I didn't say it, I intended to say we weren't always sort of thrashing away doing like 100 gigs a year. We've always sort of gone extremely slowly, and that's probably one of the reasons we're still around and doing it. I mean, last year was probably one of our most prolific years for bringing songs out and playing live. In that whole time being together, literally years could go by where we weren't doing actively anything gigging. I think what people have got now is just. It's the same as releasing, really, with the internet and playing live, in that anyone can do it, and that's a great thing. When we started,
accessible.
when we were 19, 20, you can make a demo, but if you wanted to do anything that was sort of kind of, unless you could do that demo in a sincere way. Like, you know, there was famous self-made albums like the Headphone Masterpiece by Cody Chestnut. That was a fantastic one. So if you can do it with some sort of sincerity, you could get away with it. But I think the moral of the story is that it was really hard to do something that you would present to someone, and even to get a gig. You know, I don't think sort of the generation coming through now knows how hard it was. You basically had to, you know, go and record and come out of a cassette. You know, pay someone a few $100 to come out of a cassette, a CD. Then you had to run that CD down to the venue where you may or may not hear. I think there's a lot of promoters now. In my recollection was you were always dealing directly with the venue. They're probably all in-house back in the day.
Yeah.
So it's easy to anyone to do it, and anyone can get a song out there on Spotify or any of the platforms dead easily. But with that comes there's so much more. What we said before. There's so much more vying for people's attention.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder because everyone can and will and should do it, by the way. There should be no barrier to who should do it, because why not, you know? So to get gigs as well, I think getting gigs seems a lot harder, maybe because we're, you know...
I think there's just that many bands as well.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just...
At the moment, there's like a saturation of bands. There's so many good bands around.
Yeah, you're right. It's an absolutely saturated field, really. So, but I think it's great because, like, people can express themselves. You know, if you want to record a song, you can do it if you've got the know-how or you've got a friend that knows how. You can record a song to such a high quality for next to nothing now.
In your bedroom.
And you can get it out there, you can get it out there, and why not? More people should.
Do you have a lot of followers on socials? Is that a big
comparatively
thing for you?
to some people, no. Probably next to nothing, really. I think we've got around 1,000 on Instagram. But what we are seeing is a bit of more people sticking round.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
that's what you
more
want,
people genuinely. I think metrics is a dangerous thing for people these days, and I've seen a lot where it can affect people's mental health, especially, like, you know, again, I keep saying younger people, but it can affect anyone. But I suppose people that are so used to dealing with things on social media, and I see people doing a lot of talking around the metrics, and Spotify Rap's a massive thing.
Yeah,
we didn't partake in it. Number one, because there's nothing to shout about. It's completely
honest.
Yeah, completely underwhelming. But number two, it's like, well, maybe it's just a bit more alien to us, but I see a lot of people, I suppose, paying for plays and bots is a thing in it, where
it's a huge
people
thing.
do it because they think there's some further traction in it down the line. It comes with its own risk and rewards in that sense. But I think the only metric that really matters is your interactions. It's the people that are coming back, speaking to you, you know, how many people, whether commenting you or DMing you. And that's what's been pleasing for us in this last year particular, is that more people, and, you know, more people that we don't know, you know, because every band starts out with, you know, your friends and family sort of saying you're good, and they are going to say you're good because they want to encourage you, unless you've got some really what you call it, honest people around you. And but music's subjective, of course. You know, you might be great and people telling you shit, or vice versa. But I think what's been pleasing for us is that we're getting more people that just don't know us, that have just started to follow us, really, and that's very rewarding in itself. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of bands around your way where you're actually based, or?
There's a few bands where we're based, and there always has been traditionally. Not so much at the moment that I could name, really. There's good friends of ours, the Modalities. We're playing with them at Fuel on the 22nd of February. They're supporting us. This is going to be our first headline gig.
Is that in Manchester?
Yeah, it's in Withington in South Manchester, so quite accessible in student land and around there. The Modalities are good. There's a guy who goes under Soul Metro who's just released his own album. I found really enjoyable. He was like releasing a track, I think it was every month,
right,
till he got his album complete. He's well worth checking out. And there's some bigger acts as well, like the rapper Pros. He's from round our way. He's doing really well now. Incredible numbers, and you can see what's for real because of some of the stuff he's done. I think there's a video recently where he was playing in some MMA arena or something. Right. Watching his rise recently has been incredible as well. But historically going back, there's always been action in and around sort of the Stretford area, like Morrissey, etc. Obviously being from there. bit of legacy stuff, yeah.
So I've got some fun questions for you now.
All right.
Something a bit
a
bit
fun.
lighter. Yeah. Right. If you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, flipping heck. I wish you'd sent me that in advance, to be honest.
We like to, put you under pressure.
There's a couple that spring to mind. The Remote Part by Idlewild.
Oh, what an album!
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's only a small collection of albums I'll give a genuine 5-star rating to. And I'd say The Remote Part by Idlewild was a big important album for me.
Everyone should check that album out.
Yeah. But because it's a little bit more light-hearted, I wouldn't say throwaway, but maybe more uplifting in a way, I'd go for the Blue Album by Weezer.
Right.
Because that was a big album for me as well. When obviously when I was younger, it came out in like '94, so I was like 13 then. So yeah,
good choice.
I'd go for Weezer, the Blue Album.
If there's one song you wish you'd written and not for the money, what would it be?
Oh, flipping heck.
I have to say not for the money because everyone says a Christmas song.
Not for the money. Well, regardless of that, one song I think. Well, again, it's put me on the spot a bit, but I'd go for.
That's what we like to do, put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'd go for The Hurricane by Bob Dylan.
All right.
I just think it's very emotive, very clever. I wouldn't have made it as long as him.
Yeah, it's quite long. Is it about 9 minutes long?
Yeah, it's really long, obviously, where he tells the story of Reuben Carter, doesn't he? The boxer. Anyone that's not heard that should check it out.
Yeah, great storytelling on that, isn't it?
The storytelling's incredible. But yeah, I'd say that was the one, really. Well, there's loads now. I sit and think about it, but if I was to say one right now, I'd say that was a genius piece that you sit down and you think, oh, yeah, how did he do it?
Yeah. If you could collaborate with one famous musician, who would it be?
How famous have they got to be?
Well, as famous as you want. I'd struggle to answer this, to be honest. I wouldn't know who.
I've got a lot of people I'd love to collaborate with.
Go on, throw a few out there.
The person I'd like to collaborate with the most, because I think he'd bring something different to a track, is Martin Merchant from AudioWeb. The singer from AudioWeb. They were a big band for us when we were young. And they're coming back actually this year. They came back about 10 years ago. Were you familiar with AudioWeb? Did you listen to a lot of them? They were like from around Hume sort of area.
Right.
And Martin Merchant, the singer, was in a band, the Sugar Merchants first. Ran that sort of Hume, Moss Side area. But AudioWeb were big like in sort of 96 to 98. They were signed to U2's label Mother. Right. And they supported U2 on the Pop Mart tour, which for a small, not small band, for a sort of cultish band from Manchester was obviously an incredible feat. Yeah. And I saw him a few times over the years. I saw him play with like Northern Uproar in Manchester University, which was like the Academy 2 or something now, I think. But I've always loved Martin Merchant because he's a fantastic singer, but he does like a lot of the sort of ragga sort of toasting and rapping, and I think what he was always brought dynamically is incredible. So someone to bring something completely different like
different
that
approach
to our track,
to what you would usually do.
Great, yeah. So I'd say Martin Merchant was my number one because he always has been.
Cool. So, in your live set, do you do any cover songs, or is it all just original? We've done
one so far, which was Big Mouth Strikes Again.
All right.
By the Smiths, obviously.
Yeah.
And
obviously, you've got to do it justice. I mean, you've got to do it. If you do a Smith song,
it's on Instagram and that, so people can say if we did it justice or not. But we had an incredible guitarist that night with us who plays with us sometimes, who's a fantastic solo artist, Ollie Boyden. So he could really do it. He could do it justice more than he could do Johnny Marr justice more than I could do Morrissey justice. But the reason I wanted to do it was my brother was in attendance, and my brother went to the same school as Morrissey. Oh, right. Which was St Mary's in Stretford, and it was a bit of a brutal institution. Anyone that survived 5 years there did pretty well. But him and Morrissey both did it together, so I thought it should be a nice little nod to him as well as being massive fans of the Smiths, obviously. But yeah, obviously the Smiths being local to us, well, Morrissey being more local to us, Johnny Marr, obviously from Wythenshawe, South Manchester as well. Like a lot of bands, obviously a huge influence, and still stood the test of time.
So can you tell us about any upcoming projects you've got?
Yeah, well, we're still recording through that backlog of 300 tunes or whatever. And we've got about 3 lined up to come out this year. So I think the next single we're going to release is a song called Friend of a Friend. And that hopefully will complete our first EP, which will be called Mythical Horizons Act 1. Our plan is to get 3 EPs out and sort of release collectively at the end of it, sort of as an album, really. We're just going to see how that goes. That'll be featuring sort of 3 of the tunes that we've already released. So Concourse Cowboys, In and Out of Love, and The Tomb of Pope Julius II, and this Friend of a Friend will be like the 4th tune on it.
Right.
Yet to see if we'll do a physical release, really, because it's got to be... physical releases are a money pit, you know.
Yeah, there does seem to be a trend towards that now, though. I've noticed bands putting CDs out, and
I think
band doing vinyl as well.
Yeah, I think if you've got a few people that are interested in getting their hands on one, it's good because it's just something for your merch stand. Yeah. But it's something physical. It's not a lost art because obviously there's been a resurgence in vinyl and stuff in general, hasn't there? But I certainly won't go as far as to say a lost art, but it's just something for people to.
Yeah, I think
sort
people
of hold on to.
Yeah,
really.
I think people are back into that now. A physical copy of.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe a few cassettes and a few CDs to put on the merch stand. Yeah. Also, T-shirts, and I'm going to replicate the mask as well. Get a few of the mask and the glasses out so people can have the full dress-up set.
Yeah, full audience in there. Yeah,
some people are dying to dress up as me.
Yeah, awesome. And gig-wise, you've got that one.
Yeah, that's the only one that's in the diary at the moment. So if there's anyone out there that wants us to support them or hit us up, any promoters, just for the rest of the year, in any location, really, get in touch.
Yeah, check out Hanson Rat.
Definitely, but I think what we are aiming to do this year is to do a bit more sort of curated nights ourselves and a bit more self-promotion.
Yeah.
Because we've worked with some fantastic promoters who do really go all out there. Some aren't so great, I think everyone knows that, really.
Yeah.
Not a lot of there's some promoters who don't really do a lot of promoting. It's all on you, but that's not really.
I think that was mentioned in our last podcast, actually.
Yeah. Well, for the viewers or the listeners, I won't go over that then again, but because most people kind of know about that. But there is some fantastic promoters. But I think if it's within your means and you've got a bit of experience of how things work, then self-promoting is a good way forward because you can specifically curate that night and put on something special for your friends and your followers. And I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than turning up to a night. Most band experiences, and you're on a mishmash of bands and artists who are nothing like you, basically. And then you get the old, people coming in to see their friends and going and
it's
the way forward.
Of mine.
Yeah, of course it is. And listen, sometimes that's with honourable intentions. It pains me to say it, but there's been times where I've not stuck around to watch the band just because you've had to go for transport reasons or whatever, or the guys you're playing with have got to get going. Like I say, we've got a bit of a rotating cast, so they're not sort of invested emotionally in watching another band as we would be if we were sort of a structured band, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's with all the best will in the world you can't, but if you're putting on something a night it's more like an event, then hopefully people are more sort of invested in that and will stick around and make it a night to sort of remember, really.
Well, thanks for coming down.
No problem. Thanks very much for the invite.
Check out Hanson Rat on Spotify, and they'll be gigging in your town soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.